The long-anticipated Woodie Rework is finally here, accompanied by a new animated short. The short is nice, but it would have been better if we could have gotten some answers though. There's a surprising amount of mystery surrounding this character. Even after his dedicated update, we still know nothing whatsoever about his past. Like, who is Lucy? How did Woodie get his curse? It seems as though some things shall remain mysteries for at least a while. Maybe forever. Anyway, the main focus of Woodie's rework was the addition of 2 new transformations, and new mechanics surrounding all 3 of them. Woodie can trigger a random transformation by eating a certain number of monster foods, which includes monster meat, lasagna, and durian. Woodie can also trigger a specific transformation using one of 3 idols, crafted in the magic tab, one for each respective transformation. A random transformation will occur when a full moon rises. These random transformations will last for double the normal time, which is 4 minutes or around half a day. Using an idol to transform will cost around 20 health and 15 sanity, and exiting any transformation will set Woodie's hunger to 0. All transformations also have minor wetness resistance and free night vision, and the map can now be viewed in these forms. Less sanity is now lost while Woodie is transformed, however he no longer gains it for planting pine cones. The log meter has been removed completely and replaced with a meter that tracks Woodie's time left in each transformation when applicable. Woodie also no longer needs to eat wood since the log meter has been deprecated. And finally, Woodie has a 50% higher chance to spawn tree guards, although the werebeaver form can no longer spawn them at all. This is pretty much the thick and thin of Woodie's rework besides the details of his transformations. And while some of these changes have good intent and are executed well, others are not. For example, it's great to see the log meter and Woodie's log consuming abilities removed. They always felt a bit weird and out of place, and definitely took away from Woodie's potential as a log harvester. The same goes for Woodie's new ability to view the map while transformed. Previously, this inability had no reason to exist, and was purely an annoyance. But the main issue with these perks, and this update as a whole, is that many of Woodie's new abilities feel very random, as though they've been shambled together without much thought. In my previous Woodie video, I said that his perks didn't make sense to me. It turns out that they were actually just Canadian jokes, which I'm sure are absolutely hilarious to anyone who gets them, but at the time I didn't, which made the perks feel very random. New Woodie still feels random to me because his perks are actually random, and not based off of a country-wide inside joke. I mean, probably, I've never actually been to Canada. I have heard it's a weird place. It's hard not to question the intent behind these perks. Why does Woodie have 3 transformations now, and why can he choose between them at will? What lore significance does this have, if any? Why can't Woodie choose between being a lumberjack or a druid? Think about it, Lucy is kinda left in the dust after this update. She doesn't really fit in with Woodie's totems and multiple transformations anymore. Same goes for the increased tree guard spawns. It just doesn't make sense to me. Woodie is split between these 2 archetypes and they don't really create a well-rounded and meaningful build. But now onto Woodie's transformations. Although I still believe they feel out of place and not in tune with the rest of Woodie's character, I have to say the 2 new transformations are both designed and animated incredibly well. It makes them all the more satisfying as well. Without the excellent animation quality, it really wouldn't feel the same. The beaver was Woodie's original transformation, and it still serves more or less the same purpose in the new update. For 3 monster meat and 2 logs, Woodie can craft the kitschy beaver idol, which will turn him into the werebeaver for 4 minutes or half a day. The werebeaver can run around and gnaw trees, rocks, and anything that can be dug, including stumps. The werebeaver is an extremely proficient log gatherer, especially now that Woodie no longer needs to eat half the logs he collects. Gnawing can also be used offensively, dealing 27.3 damage with a slow animation. The beaver also runs 10% faster than normal, and has an innate 25% damage resistance. The longer the player fails to gnaw anything, the faster the meter will drain. As with all other forms, exiting the werebeaver will leave Woodie with 0 hunger. Overall, this form is a highly potent gatherer. The 3 monster meat and 2 log cost is certainly worth the half day of complete and utter wood annihilation. The main problem with this is that there's now effectively no reason for Lucy to exist. Seriously, you might as well just leave her in a chest somewhere. The beaver form's potency overrides pretty much any need to use Woodie's beloved axe. The WereGoose is Woodie's first new transformation, and the respective idol is made with 3 monster meat and 3 seeds. While in goose form, Woodie gains a 40% speed boost, but the complete inability to do anything but run around frantically. Using this form to explore is a counterintuitive task, as while exploring you won't be able to gather resources such as berry bushes along the way, ultimately making it worse at this job than a Wickerbottom or Wolfgang. However, the WereGoose has a unique ability allowing it to run over the new water surfaces. This is an excellent way to locate the lunar island once you have a rough idea of where it will be, as you will save resources sailing around the entire world and can instead take a more direct route. Beware though, as ending the transformation while on water will result in Woodie drowning. While standing still, the goose's meter will begin to drain faster, so try not to stay in one spot. The third and final transformation is the bulky WereMoose. After eating the moose's idol built with 3 monster meat and 2 grass, Woodie will transform into an awe-inspiring Alcis, able to trample enemies with ease. The WereMoose deals 59.5 damage with a normal attack speed, but runs 10% slower. Right-clicking will allow you to charge in a direction, dealing damage to everything in your path. The moose can break objects by ramming into them and is not stopped by ramming enemies. The Moose also has a hefty 90% damage absorption, which is certainly nothing to scoff at, although you cannot heal in this form without the assistance of other players. Overall, the Moose is rather formidable in combat, and can certainly be worth the crafting and hunger cost, although it can be difficult to keep your meter up when fighting smaller mobs. So Woodie's transformations are all well and good by themselves, but what about when compared to other characters? This is when the usefulness of Woodie's forms can get a bit questionable. Wolfgang is, surprisingly enough, a main contender and great comparison to Woodie. Wolfgang, as we all know, gains double damage and a 25% speed boost when in a full stomach. When compared to the Moose, Wolfgang is generally a more viable choice, since he does far more damage when paired with a formidable weapon such as a dark sword or hand bat, and can wear armors which grant him similar levels of defense, as well as being able to heal himself. However, the Moose is accessible much earlier on, pretty much as soon as you locate a single spider nest, and so it could prove to be a decent early game exterminator. Overall, Wolfgang does win, simply due to how much more damage he can deal. As for exploration, Mighty Wolfgang with a walking cane is 10% faster than the Goose, meaning that once the first winter has arrived, he is the more viable choice. For early exploration, Wolfgang still wins out, due to his ability to gather resources while exploring, and an overall lesser resource cost. However, if you're looking to locate the Celestial Island early on or save on wood, otherwise needed to build boats, the Goose can prove to be an excellent method to do so. The Beaver is best compared to, of course, Maxwell, Don't Starve Together's other harvester character. Woodie's werebeaver form is actually now better at harvesting logs than a Maxwell, 2 shadow loggers and a shadow digger. The main difference between the two is the resource cost, as Woodie only gets half a day of his ability for less cost, while Maxwell can use his puffets indefinitely, although they are more expensive initially. Although these two characters make good comparisons, they ought to be taken with a grain of salt, since a lot is likely to change when Maxwell and Wolfgang get reworked. Personally, I hope Maxwell gets removed from the resource collector role altogether. To me, it isn't really fitting for an ex-magician, reliant on an ancient tome to use his powers to collect logs of all things. It certainly makes more sense for that role to be reserved for an actual lumberjack. The second biggest problem with this update still to me is the randomness of the perks. Even after a subsequent balance update, they still feel rushed and hurriedly shambled together. Having Woodie being more of a polymorph or druid than a lumberjack still feels really odd to me. But there's one thing left. One incredibly major issue, which is what really ruins this update for me. Woodie has no downside. Downsides have been an integral part of Don't Starve's character design since pretty much forever, and to see Woodie without one just makes him feel kind of empty. And for Clay's sake, I really hope that the 50% extra tree guard spawns isn't an attempt at a downside. Or is this Don't Starve Together's new scope? Willow effectively has no downside anymore either. Is this Clay's attempt to direct DST towards a more casual audience? I can't tell, but I kinda hope it isn't. Characters just don't feel like Don't Starve characters without a downside. Anyway, that's all for this video. See you next time.